This morning, it is my privilege to introduce our guest speaker, Martha Hill. Many of you know Martha as Ruth's daughter and Neva's granddaughter. We have had the joy of watching her over the last couple of years as she has helped us around our church when she's home from school. And it is exciting to see how God continues to work in her life and lead her into ministry. Martha is a graduate of Yelm High School and went on to attend Central Washington University. And while she was there, she became involved in an organization called Chi Alpha, where she has grown in her faith, developed a heart for reaching college students, and discovered God's calling on her life. So today, Martha has been accepted by the Assemblies of God U.S. missions to serve on Chi Alpha Ministries, and will be completing an internship at Central Washington University. During this internship, she will be helping reach students with the gospel, making disciples, and investing in the next generation of Christian leaders. So we are grateful to have Martha with us today. She is going to share what God has been doing in her life, what He is calling her to in the next season of ministry, and bring the message this morning. Would you please join me in giving her a warm welcome?
So as Pastor Sam said, I'm Martha. Hello. I just want to say thank you guys so much for having me here to share with you all and for just showing my family so much support. You guys have been absolute rock stars at just loving on them so well. This church is truly just like one of the most genuine church communities that I've ever been able to be a part of. Like every person is so genuine. So I just feel very blessed to be taken in and cared by all of you. I'm related to Ruth and Neva, who's over in the food bank right now. And on the next slide, I just wanted to share a little bit about myself really quick, because you might not know just me for me. I love all kinds of art. It is, I think, just hardwired into me. I love drawing, painting, photography, sculpture, theater, music, reading fantasy books, playing some video games, and the list goes on. Anything creative catches my eye, and I could talk about my art and other people's art for hours and hours. I also picked up ukulele in the past 4 to 5 months, and I've been dinking around on that, and that's been a great creative pursuit. So I also grew up in Yelm, about a 15-minute drive from here, just that way. And I went to Prairie Elementary, Ridgeline Middle School, Yelm High School. So I've been very local for a long time. And then when it came time to go to college and to choose a college, I didn't want to be super far from home, and I also didn't want to spend way too much money. So I followed many of my family members' footsteps and went to Central Washington University to study education, secondary art education to be exact. I wanted to teach high schoolers or maybe middle schoolers when I was going into college, but just definitely not the little kids. I am not built for that. Instead of telling like little Timmy and Susan to stop fighting over their colored pencil and de-escalate their emotions, I wanted to like have, conversations with full sentences with high schoolers and middle schoolers and talk about their art and their vision and their future plans, and mentor them in that way. So I was a student at Central for 4 years, and I got involved in this Christian group called Chi Alpha Christian Fellowship in my first year. And yes, you might think that it sounds like a fraternity or a sorority. It's not. The words Chi Alpha, it comes from the Greek letters XA, which literally stand for Christ ambassadors, Chi Alpha. So it's not a frat. There's no Greek life at Central, actually. But everyone thinks that we are, and we always have to say, we promise, we promise, we're literally just Christians. And so I found a community there that became my home away from home. Here's some lovely pictures of the girls that I've been actually living with for the past 2 years. We have this like community girls' house where currently there's 7 of us at this house. Next year, we're going to have 8 of us living in this massive house together. We all rent it. We decided to name it the Cornerstone Cottage because it's like a little bit of Jesus-y, and cottage is just cute. Yeah, and these ladies have become some of my closest friends, definitely. I love that this picture. This is Claire. I'll talk about her later. Notice that there's like, oh, how old was she? 21 or 22 candles in that tiny slice of cake that we shoved. There's some in the sides. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, I just love these girls. I've gone on many late night spontaneous grocery outlet runs with these girls to get ice cream, specifically mochi ice cream. It's really good before watching movies or things like that. I've also gotten to practice like really healthy vulnerability with these girls and just had really long talks about all the things we're going through because we've just built so much genuine trust from being in the same community and living together. Yeah, I graduated from Central exactly 1 year ago now, like to the day, with my bachelor's in secondary art education and a minor in religious studies. And I took like a gap year and worked at Fred Meyer because there were some major life plans of mine that kind of changed. And now I'm in this transition point. Like, what do I do with my life now? I've been graduated a year, and I'm not like at Chi Alpha. It's for college students. We don't just let people hang around. It's like we're preparing you to like be a Jesus follower that goes out into another community, basically. And so we don't want people hanging around that are like way past being a student. So the obvious choice would be to go into the workforce and start substitute teaching and look for a full-time teaching job, right? Yeah, but I'm actually not doing that. Why in the world would I do that? You're allowed to look at me like I'm crazy. It's okay. I'm in the prime of my life. I should be looking for a reliable career, an apartment, while I'm saving to buy a house. I should be looking for a husband to start a family, and the list goes on, because that's the American dream, right? And I'm not saying that there's anything inherently wrong with that. I believe that God can move through all of those things, and I know people who are like currently pursuing those things, like getting a job, starting a family. And they are just right in the middle of God's will for them. And they're doing great things for God's kingdom. But why am I not doing that? Because I believe that for me, in this stage of my life right now, being in the center of God's will looks like pursuing a full-time position as a college campus missionary. So how did I make that decision? And what does that even mean? To answer that question, I'd love to tell you a story. On the next slide. Is just a picture of Central, I think, the place where all this happened. And yeah, I was raised in a Christian household in Yelm, 15 minutes away from here. And all the way through high school, I would say a lukewarm and apathetic Christian. I believed in the morals that Jesus taught, and I was pretty sure that I believed in God, but I didn't live my whole life for Jesus, and I also didn't even know that I could have a personal relationship with him. So then I moved to Ellensburg to go to Central Washington University, and my parents tell me, go find a Christian community to get involved with. It'll be good for you. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do what my parents say, and I go to this club fair, which is a bunch of student clubs that are lined up on a main walkway. If you look really closely, that walkway is where it happened. And it's just like a main walkway where a bunch of foot traffic is. There's a bunch of these student clubs that have tables and like trifold displays, and they're standing there trying to get people involved in community. I'm looking for something that says Christian, and I see this, okay, there's a massive tent. It's like a big canopy thing. It's black. It's got like massive loudspeakers that are blaring music that you can hear from like hundreds of feet down the road. And it says Resonate Church. And I'm like, okay, it says church, but it's really scary and I don't want to go over there. And so I walk away from it and I keep walking down the street, and there's this little white fold-out table, and there's a clipboard on it that says sign up sheet, and there's two people just like with really casual dress standing behind it, and the sign says Chi Alpha Christian Fellowship, and I'm like, okay, these are my people. These people are much less scary. So I go up and talk to them, and they're like, yeah, we have like large group and small group. You should come on Tuesday to our large group service. And I was like, okay, and I got their little flyer and I went back to my dorm. And then when Tuesday came, I show up at the building on campus, where they have this large group meeting, and I go and I sit down in the back row, and there's a girl that sits next to me. Her name is Cruz, and she says, "Hey, what's your name? I haven't seen you around here before." She introduces herself to me, and we sit in the back row together because she says, "Do you want to move up to where my friends are sitting?" And I say, "No, I'd actually just like to sit back here." And she says, "Okay, I'll sit with you." And then she invites me to her small group. I learned that she co-leads a women's small group within Chi Alpha with another lady. And so I start going to the Tuesday night large groups, small groups, and just getting involved in community. Yeah, I remember that first Tuesday night that I went to, I was really taken aback because I saw people that were my age, like raising their hands in worship like they meant it, like they actually wanted to be doing that. They were also at a church service and their parents weren't telling them to be there. And I was like, okay, this is really weird because I grew up in a church where it was mostly old people. There were maybe 5 kids, and one of them was my friend, and I wasn't really friends with any of the others. So when I saw, people my age in Chi Alpha, like start to pursue me, and they wanted to ask me what God was teaching me, it really surprised me. And so the next few years in college, I do my homework as an art education major, and then I spend a ton of my free time with this Chi Alpha community. Cruz, that girl, she met with me once a week to get to know me and to study the Bible with me and disciple me. She helped me process how God was growing me. And then I even got the chance to go on some spring break mission trips, which I shared about earlier this year, if you guys were here. I got a chance to go on that starting my first year, and it just grew me like crazy. I got the chance to talk to students about their experience with faith and like try to practice sharing the gospel with them. What else did I do? Oh yeah, I became a student leader a couple years into college in my junior year, and so I got to do what Cruz was doing. I got to be the person welcoming the new freshmen that were coming in that were really shy and they needed someone to sit with them. And I got to practice discipling them and leading a small group. It's so fun when you've never practiced this before and you just have to keep talking, even though you don't say all the things that's on your paper and you change it a little bit. Okay, so I was a part of Chi Alpha all 4 years of college, and then I take a gap year, and I was still leading a small group while I was working at Freddy's, and like spending a huge amount of time building community with students while spending 6 hours a day in a grocery store. And now I'm here and I'm processing, what am I going to do with this coming year? I have a few options. I could transition out of Central's Chi Alpha community, use my degree to get a teaching job somewhere and be a witness for Jesus to my coworkers and students, or I could continue my ministry work at Chi Alpha by doing a program called the CMIT, or we colloquially call it the internship. CMIT stands for Campus Missionaries in Training. They're teaching you how to be a campus pastor and giving you tools for that. And it kind of felt like I had been pouring like an equal amount of myself into these two worlds of being in the marketplace and also being in campus ministry. And I knew that God would be able to use me a lot more, like effectively, if I just chose one and was able to pour my whole self into just one of those worlds. Not working at Fred Meyer, but like getting a teaching job or doing campus ministry. I'm not going to work at Fred Meyer full time. That was not my life plan. And as I thought about my experience as an education student in the month that I was like full-time teaching as a student teacher in a middle school art classroom, I knew that I loved education. I could see myself devoting my whole self to being a teacher, but I could also see myself devoting all of my time to campus ministry. I laughed with my middle schoolers and I cried for them when their lives were unbearably hard or when I was really fearful of their futures. And in the same way, I laughed all the time with the people that I knew in Chi Alpha, and I cried for the girls in my small group when their lives were unbearably hard or when I wanted so badly for them to be met by Jesus in their hardships. I still have so much love for both of these groups of people, and I have spent so much time fighting for people in both places. But deep down, I kept feeling a pull to how God was moving at Central's Chi Alpha. I kept seeing uncanny ways that my art education degree was preparing me to meet the needs of college students and lead them to Jesus. Guys, there's a lot of similarities to education and campus ministry, believe it or not. Tailoring your teaching to individual students in a classroom is like learning about the individual girls in your small group and learning to support them uniquely in their walk with Jesus. Lesson planning and organizing activities for a classroom is like writing Bible studies and planning fun community events for your college students. Asking your students questions so they get to the answer on their own is like asking college students what Jesus is teaching them and helping them come to the conclusion of what Jesus is saying. On the next slide, it makes me think of a passage in Romans 12. In verses 6 through 8, Paul says, "We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it's teaching, then teach. If it's to encourage, then give encouragement. If it's giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully." So I was thinking, what skills do I have and where does God want me? I knew I had the skills to go into education or campus ministry, but where was I actually needed? Like, where am I needed right now? Next slide. Right now, practically, I see a need at Central's Chi Alpha. In the past few years, lots of our staff members who are people that were once students and then did the internship program and then joined staff at Chi Alpha. Lots of them have been transitioning out to do ministry work across the world. We have people in Asia, we have people in Alaska now, and that's great. There's also some people that are like stepping back to take care of their young kiddos because they're starting families. And so there's a legitimate need for strong leadership at Central's Chi Alpha, and I would love to fill that role by doing this CMIT program. I believe that Jesus has been equipping me for campus ministry at Central, and I truly believe this is where he wants me for at least this coming school year. I'm so excited for this program, truly. I'll be living close to campus, inviting students into community, leading a small group, doing one-on-one discipleship, and I'm even going to get to lead one of those spring break trips that I've gone on so many times in the past, and I get to learn how to actually write a message and preach it to our community. So that's my story of how I've come to this point. But why am I so passionate about this whole college campus ministry thing? What about that environment, that group of people, makes me so excited? I'm glad you asked, everyone. I believe that campus ministry is one of the most strategic mission fields in the world. I'm not saying that other mission fields are bad. Please do not misunderstand me. Let me just explain the kind of people that end up on a college campus and what kind of impact they can have if they're changed by Jesus during their time as a student. On a college campus, you're going to meet Christians, Catholics, atheists, agnostics, Muslims, Hindus, members of the LDS Church, people that practice various forms of witchcraft or Wicca, and more. And you will also meet students from all over Washington, the United States, and even other countries. Did you guys know that there's around 100 international students from about 30 different countries on Central's campus? It's crazy because you don't have to get a passport or plane tickets or spend gas money to talk to people from places and countries that I'm never going to visit in my lifetime, but they just come to us. And as they all end up in the same town of Ellensburg, at the same college for 2 to 4 years, depending on whether or not they do Running Start, they're at the most formative stage of their lives. They're moving away from their families for the first time, and they're searching for community and identity. I've seen students try to find identity and purpose in their studies, their hobbies, in volunteer or charity work, or in their romantic relationships. Whatever they do in their time in college, it seriously shapes them. It shapes their view of themselves and others and the world. And after they leave school, that's just their outlook. It's pretty cemented. And when they graduate, they're going to go back to their hometowns or their home countries, and they're going to be like the future leaders of this world. They're going to get jobs. They're going to be our future business owners, our politicians, teachers, engineers, parents, and more. And so I think that changing students on the college campus is like changing the world from the inside out. When students come into our Chi Alpha community and they're changed by Jesus, they go out and enter the world as transformed images of Christ, displaying him wherever they go. Most students that are changed by Jesus in Chi Alpha, they're going to graduate college, move away from Ellensburg and join the workforce. They can change the culture of businesses, schools, or even like the television and entertainment industry. Like our theater people are going to be able to do that. They're going to change it from the inside out to look like God's kingdom. They're given the ultimate opportunity to be salt and light wherever they go, where there might be none. Can you imagine if the CEOs or leaders in major corporations led their business with Jesus's vision and ethics instead of selfish motives? Wouldn't that business stick out like a sore thumb in our society today? How about a teacher that doesn't gossip about other staff members or students, but only builds them up with their words and actions and prays ceaselessly for change in their community? Wouldn't that teacher stand out? I will probably never be able to walk through the doors of Microsoft or Amazon headquarters or act on a Hollywood film set or be a college professor at Harvard. I might not be able to get into these places, but I can disciple and equip students that can be lifelong disciples of Jesus that can go to those places. The people that I can help change for Christ in their late teens and early 20s can go on and impact culture, society, and the workforce all the way through their 60s. And when they retire, what amazing stories can they tell their children and grandchildren about how God moved in their lives, starting in college and through the rest of their lives? College campus ministry can have this multi-generational effect. And so I'd love to tell a quick story about a student I met 2 years ago that's at the start of this multi-generational effect. As we learned with her birthday cake with many, many candles in it, she's only 21, 22 right now. She came to Central as a freshman. I should point out who she is. This is Clara. There she is. That's me. That's Kennedy. She's one of our lovely staff ladies. But that's Claire. That's who I'm talking about. She came to Central as a freshman, and she was raised Christian, like similarly to me. She didn't have like a close personal relationship with Jesus before college. She was really shy, like to the point that we'd be having a conversation. I'd be trying to get to know her, and she'd be talking so quietly. She'd be talking so quietly that I would have to ask her to repeat herself multiple times. And I think in her head, she was like really shy, but also thought she was talking loud enough. Anyways, she was very mousy. She didn't have a lot of friends at college, but she had a lot of surface level friendships back home. She told me later on that at this point in her story, she wrestled with the feeling of needing to be seen as popular and wanted by others. And she found that in her friends back home. And so she was exploring communities on campus. She explored a couple different Christian communities, and one of them was Chi Alpha. She ended up joining my small group, and my co-leader and I became genuine friends with her. I started meeting weekly with her to disciple her and process things that were happening in her life. She saw differences between the friendships she had in Chi Alpha versus the ones back home that were more surface level. Our community showed her Jesus's love and pushed her to grow in her walk with God. Clara stepped out in boldness and went on a spring break mission trip her freshman year, which is crazy. A lot of freshmen are pretty scared to do that, but she did it. And then she became a small group leader the year after that. And right now she's continuing her education at Central, and she's practicing discipleship with the girls in her own small group now. She also has super close friends that she doesn't feel the need to be liked or popular around. The Holy Spirit is growing her boldness and transforming her to be more and more and more like Jesus. And she's even going on a missions trip to Indonesia with a few of our students, because there's an international Chi Alpha at a university in Indonesia. And as of like literally today, their team is starting the, I think like 48-hour travel time to get to Indonesia. So prayers for them getting there safely and sanely would be great. So yeah, that's just one example of how Jesus has helped me make a disciple in this Chi Alpha community that's going to go on to make more disciples. And there's so many other people like Claire that I'm currently like hanging out with and discipling, and students that are going to be freshmen this coming year that need someone to sit with them in the back row and just be their friend. So I've shared a lot about why we do ministry on a college campus, and I've shared some stories, but what does it actually look like in a campus missionary's day-to-day life? And what am I going to be doing in the CMIT program? Okay, so Chi Alpha's ministry has weekly large group church services that are kind of like, that's this one. On Tuesday nights, we have worship and a message and some like fellowship time, a little friendship break. Where's my next? It's on the back. Aha! Yes, worship and a message. And everyone in our community comes together for these services. And then throughout the week, we have men's and women's small groups. We call them core groups. Cores are groups of genuine friends that learn to follow Jesus together, and they're led by normally 2 or 3 small group leaders that we call facilitators. And the leaders plan weekly Bible studies and just like hangout times for their people to get to know each other. We like to use the phrase life on life, which means doing life together, whether it's sitting in someone's dorm room doing homework or going to the grocery store together and dilly-dallying or staying up late playing board games. Picture on the top left is a joint like fun core that me and my co-leader and then another girls' core had together, and we made some fun little things out of clay. It was great. We also have 3 retreats a year every quarter of Central's like academic calendar. And it's kind of like a weekend Bible camp for college students. We go to a retreat center, we listen to messages, we worship together, and we have a really good friendship building time and processing time of like, what is God speaking to you through these messages? Like, what are you thinking about? So that's a picture of winter camp. Winter's special. That's not how big our whole Chi Alpha is. That's every Pacific Northwest Chi Alpha coming together at the same retreat center and doing a camp together. That's one example of that. And we also don't just bring students inwards and like feed them. That's great, and we're going to keep doing that, right? But we also push them outwards on SBO, Spring Break Outreach, that like week-long mission trip, which is most of the time to places in the States that have other Chi Alphas. But then we have our summer mission trips to Indonesia, which is pretty great. Students that go on those trips, they skyrocket in their faith. It's just like a week that they say yes to Jesus, and they just come out of it like so bold. I could tell you about fun community events, or the time that our students came together to support the poor and needy in Ellensburg at a cold weather shelter. But I've heard that preachers have a tendency to ramble on and maybe make some people take a premature Sunday nap. So I'm going to avoid that and close it by time here by focusing on the most important part of how we do ministry. Nobody at Central's Chi Alpha invented this strategy. We got it from Jesus himself. Seems like a pretty good source. It's discipleship. I've been kind of throwing that word around a lot. Okay, real quick, what is discipleship? On our next slide, it says, discipleship is the process of becoming who Jesus would be if he were in your shoes. I definitely stole that from one of our campus pastors at Central. So shout out to Tim. If you ever see this, he just said it really well. So Jesus had 12 disciples that lived life with him and modeled their lives after him. They ate meals together. They listened to Jesus' teachings. They practiced outreach together and traveled wherever Jesus went. That lifestyle of following behind Jesus' footsteps, listening to him, and studying the Bible is what discipleship looks like. And then when we do that, we undergo this process of sanctification, big churchy word, which is just the Holy Spirit's transformative work in you to be more like Jesus. And as we're disciples of Jesus, we're instructed to go out and make more disciples. Jesus actually commands all of his followers to do this. Let's see what it says in Matthew 28:18-20 on the next slide. Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age." Now, to be clear, Jesus is not saying that we're making disciples of ourselves, right? When I say that I disciple college students, I'm not trying to make mini Marthas. I'm trying to help Jesus make more mini Jesuses, right? So when I say I disciple people, I mean that I'm building relationships and trust with people so I can facilitate spaces of discussion where I help them process what God is teaching them. I encourage them when they're struggling and call them out when they're not living like Jesus. I also offer wisdom God has taught me from my walk with him. And I teach them practical skills, like how do you even read the Bible? There's some really confusing stuff in there. Or how do you have a consistent daily, like, abiding time with God? Yeah, discipleship is how our ministry keeps going. Remember how I said that our core groups, our small groups, are led by small group leaders? They're actually almost all college students, and each of these students, like Claire's a college student, each of these students had someone that found them and started discipling them, pushing them to grow until they stepped into student leadership. And I just want to say that those guys are absolute rock stars. Like, leading a small group is like a part-time job that they have on top of their studies. They find college students that need community, they fight for them to know Jesus, and they feed them with Jesus' teachings and self-sacrificial love. And eventually, they can disciple a student that will replace them and continue the massive family tree of discipleship at our Chi Alpha. It's kind of like in 2 Timothy, when Paul is writing to Timothy about his family lineage of disciple makers. Next slide, it says, I am reminded of your sincere faith, which first lived in your grandmother Lois and in your mother Eunice, and I am persuaded now lives in you also. Timothy's grandmother discipled his mom, who then discipled him, and we have no idea how many countless disciples Timothy made that went on to make more disciples, that made more disciples, and more, and you get the picture, right? So to finish sharing about Chi Alpha and this vision of discipleship, I wanted to demonstrate Jesus's model of discipleship with a little bit of math. Don't freak out. I promise you're going to be able to follow along with this. One of the best illustrations of the discipleship model we follow is this test between what we're going to call the super evangelist versus the faithful discipler. I'm going to take a drink of water. We're going to define these terms real quick. So the super evangelist is like a famous world-renowned speaker. Think of the Billy Grahams of the world, right? They're charismatic and they're talented, and their sermons or clips are uploaded all across the internet. They have what seems like hundreds of books, millions of views online, and they speak at conference after conference. Furthermore, every time this anointed preacher speaks, 1,000 people give their lives to the Lord. On top of that, the super evangelist preaches a sermon every night, and that's 1,000 souls a night, 365 nights a year, for a total of 365,000 souls a year, giving their lives to Jesus. Seems like a pretty good year of ministry, right? The faithful discipler, however, is not I realized I should have cued you to, wait, go to the next one. What's on the next one? Yeah, okay. Yeah, there's the math on the slide. And then go to the next one. Faithful discipler. There we go. However, is not a world-renowned speaker. In fact, very few people know this person at all. But this person goes out every year and finds one person to invest in, disciple, and show what it means to follow Jesus for an entire year. After 1 year of discipleship, they advocate for the person they disciple to go out and find another person to disciple. They do the same, and this whole process repeats itself into a new generation. One faithful discipler has now become two, with both faithful disciplers going out to find another person to disciple. And so here's the test. How long is it going to take each of them to reach the entire world for Jesus? Let's do some quick math. Next slide. At the end of 1 year, the super evangelist will have reached 365,000 people, while the faithful discipler will have discipled one, meaning now there's two of them. In 5 years, the super evangelist will reach 1,825,000, while the faithful discipler reaches 32 in their spiritual lineage. In 9 years, the super evangelist will reach 3,285,000 people, while the faithful discipler has reached 512. At this point, the strategies seem a little one-sided. Next slide. However, by year 25, the super evangelist method has now reached 9,125,000 people, while the faithful discipler has now reached 33,554,432 people. So let's answer the original question. To reach the world, how long will each method take? Thanks. It will take the super evangelist over 10,000 years to reach the entire world through sermons, books, and videos that reach 365,000 a year. Unfortunately, the super evangelist will have been dead for approximately 9,900 of those years, and the faithful discipler is going to reach the entire world for Jesus in 32 to 33 years through the strategy of discipleship. That it's a disciple that disciples another person to make more disciples, all while the previous disciples are doing the same thing. Is this sinking in yet? Are you grasping the strategy here? So this comparison is not to bash the Billy Grahams of the world. No, we need those people, but most of us are probably going to be like Moses, who told God he didn't want to speak to the crowds. Not all of us need to know how to speak to the crowds, but all of us do need to know how to speak to the one about our King. Truly, the method of multiplication will win the world faster than the method of addition. This is what Jesus was initiating when he gave the Great Commission to his disciples, to make more disciples, training them, equipping them, teaching them everything I've taught you. Are you seeing that multiplication through discipleship is the plan of Jesus to reach the world? And are you also seeing how being a faithful discipler is our call as Jesus followers? By investing in the few, we can reach the many. Amen. Let's think of the 12 disciples of Jesus for a moment. Take Peter, for example. It was the lesser-known Andrew who introduced his brother Peter to Jesus. This Peter would heal people, lead people, disciple people, and preach to thousands. He would become someone like the super evangelist combined with the faithful discipler. But there's no Apostle Peter without Andrew first introducing him to Jesus. The gospel always moves along relational lines. Real change tends to happen through relational investment over time. Next slide. Or you can keep looking at the numbers. It's just Chi Alpha again. Okay, in the CMIT program through Central Washington's Chi Alpha, I'm going to be stepping into this long line of disciple makers. I'm going to be living in Ellensburg, close to campus, at the girls' house that I mentioned earlier, inviting students into community. I'm going to continue leading a small group Bible study, as well as meeting with students one-on-one to disciple them and be genuine friends with them. I'm going to be spending intentional time on campus every week, doing outreach like tabling, where I can have conversations with students about faith, or just casual conversations, getting to know them. And I'm going to be doing also a lot of like intensive study on like theological books and commentaries and other things. So I'm going to develop a much deeper understanding of the Bible than I already have. And I'll be leading one of those spring break outreach trips, which is just this supercharged time to pour into people, because you just have a whole week with students, right? Now, all of that starts in December, but this summer I'm raising support for the CMIT program, because a crucial skill to have as a missionary is knowing how to fundraise your personal budget. This is super important because if I was working a job in Ellensburg, my time would be split in two places. It's just so much harder to live life with people when you spend 6 hours in Fred Meyer every weekday. Trust me, that was my whole life this past year. And it's very hard to be friends with people when you're stuck in the grocery store. So this summer, I'm meeting with friends and churches and creating a team of people that will partner with me in prayer and finances. I'm going to be standing over there in the lobby at my little table after service, and I'll be at the luncheon too, which I guess is happening right after service. So I'm just going to be around, and if any of you are interested in talking to me more about Chi Alpha's ministry, or how you can partner with me, or subscribe to my monthly newsletter that I'm going to be having, I would love to talk to you. So that's what I have to share. I wanted to real quick give the floor to you guys if there were any questions.
When you went to Ellensburg, did you feel that you're leaving your home, you've been with your family your whole life? Do you feel like having Chi Alpha helped you to deal with the fact that now this is the first time on my own, I'm not alone?
Yeah, for sure. I think I got really comfortable in the lie that I didn't need like close community. I was like, I'm so ready to like be by myself. I have like my few friends that I'll keep in touch with on the West Side, but I'll be by myself. But then like, I remember at the end of my first year, like there was this switch that clicked, and I was like, there's something about these people that like feels so genuine and just is so helpful. So yeah, they helped me feel not alone. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'll stick around so we can keep talking. But that's what I got.